You can hear me loud and clear, is it?
Yes, Doctor.
All right, okay, moving forward. Summative assessments, no? Assessments that summarizes student learning at the end of the module or program. The assessment of learning. What happened? What did you learn? Right? It will sum up the achievement. There is no other use. The achievement of the student. Okay, that's the reason why sometimes in the comprehensive examination, if that will be summative examination, we cannot reduce. But normally what we are actually doing right now in order to help the students actually is we are reducing the number of lessons. It must not be reduced. It must be from the beginning up to the end. So that's actually the reason why supposed to be, we will not be reducing it, because if we're going to reduce that, let's say we have 10 lectures, and if we're going to reduce that to 5 to be the coverage of comprehensive examination, that will no longer be a summative assessment, because you cannot measure what the student could have learned from 1 to 5 modules, something like that, you see. So the result would be questionable, the result would be flawed, the result will not speak on the achievement of the student themselves already. All right, so this is usually the problem that we actually got. Now the summative assessments will actually generate grade, just like what I mentioned to you. For a secondary school, it will generate grade or mark, like in the case of the A level, IGCSE, or AS level. Yeah, so it usually involves assessment using traditional examinations. You have to sit down. So for the Indians, I think you're actually giving board examination, or every year there are examinations given by the universities, or after examinations after every year. These are all forms of summative assessment. No? Now, the coverage will be all, but we will not measure all the involved learning outcomes. Let's say you have 10 lectures or 10 subjects, and there are specific learning outcomes that have been there, that have been supposed to be tackled by the students. We cannot include everything from 1 to 5. Only sample of the learning outcomes will be assessed at random. No? Because we assume that during the formative assessment already, students have been measured, have been evaluated, what they have learned so far for every topic that they have. Now, for the summative assessment, we are just actually going to include representative sample, representative learning outcome that could have summarized the achievement of the students. Yeah, because it's impossible to assess all the learning outcome. Imagine 10 learning 10 subjects, and if we're going to have 5 average learning outcome each, we're going to have 50 learning outcome. And in that learning outcome, if you're going to look in the Bloom's taxonomy, sometimes it will be very difficult, because in the learning outcome you have to consider the different levels. You cannot just actually write there the knowledge and comprehensive levels, the first 2 in Bloom's taxonomy. We cannot actually do that. So if we are going to include 1 or 2, then times 50 learning outcome, average of 5 times 10 courses, you have to have 50. Now times 2 already, it will actually have 100, and we cannot do that. You see? Because generally we are actually given 100 only. That's a standard that we give now to students in order to measure the achievement of our students. Moving forward, so I think I stopped here last time. I really would like to show to you the difference between formative assessment and summative assessment. No, the difference between formative and summative assessment. On the left side, the blue one, we can actually see the formative assessment, and on the right side, the summative assessment, so that you can actually have a picture of it. No, in a formative assessment's goal is to monitor student. So we have to assess, we have to diagnose, and we have to monitor students' learning while they are attending the module, why they are attending the syllabus, why they are trying to complete the syllabus. No, in order to provide students learning feedback to the teachers, so that the teachers can adjust. No, so that that instructors can use this to improve their teaching, and at the same time to improve the learning process. So its basic purpose actually is to improve teaching here for the teachers, and for the students to improve their learning process. So there will be a bit of adjustment that can be done by the teachers. Let's say, for instance, as I mentioned to you, before the start of the before the start of the syllabus, normally students actually can, no, teachers can actually give summative assessment in a way, formative assessment in a way, to diagnose what the students learned so far or what the students know so far about the subject matter to be delivered. It depends on the result. If the students actually the result of the formative assessment is a failure, then the teacher may conclude that the student need to learn more, so need to adjust more on the learning outcomes. That means to say maybe the students we still need to be introduced on specific topic and on specific knowledge. So they will actually focus more on giving knowledge and giving comprehension. So they will focus on achievement of knowledge and achievement of comprehension on the first two levels of Bloom's taxonomy. But when the formative assessment actually will tell the teacher that the students know already more about the knowledge that need to be covered in that particular area or particular syllabus, then they can actually adjust the learning outcome. They can move from 3 to 6. They can start giving learning outcome that will focus on evaluation, synthesis, and application. So these are some of the things that we can actually recall or we can remember. No? It will help us in the process of adjustment. While if you're going to look at the summative assessment, no, the goal only is to evaluate how much the student learned in the end, in comparison with the benchmark that have been established. So we have to look into the benchmark. What is the benchmark? We're always telling that the benchmark should be around 55. No? 55 over 100. The benchmark is already been established all over the United Arab Emirates or through the CEA. So we have to look that way. Okay? So that's the main difference between formative and summative assessment. Their goals and their usage and what and how we are supposed to use. Now, the exercises that we give in between your classes would be considered as formative assessment because it will assess how much the student learned so that the teacher can actually evaluate himself and adjust as necessary as possible whatever the result may be. But in summative assessment, you cannot do anything anymore because you cannot reteach, you cannot go back. We are just going to measure. It's either pass or fail. We're just going to measure if the students really learned something. So that's actually the thing. That's the reason why if the result would be failure for the student, so the only recourse is that the student will attend or will get the subject again. Just like what we are giving you. If you have failed in any course, so you have to repeat so that you can actually go over the different learning outcomes again in order to pass and in order to, in the end, you're going to be measured and you will be judged if you're going to proceed further. So that's actually what we have in formative assessment and summative assessment. All right. So here, evaluation during the learning process will only monitor the learning process, how the students learn and how the teacher states, so that necessary adjustment can be done eventually. While on the summative assessment, we are actually assigning grades already here, A+, that's what we have. So that is after course completion. Either you're going to receive A+, A, or F. When you have F, as I mentioned earlier, you need to turn back, you need to go back, and you need to retake the specific course that you did not make. Remember, in summative assessment, we are going to assess the achievement of the student. Pass or fail. All right. Now, for formative assessment, again, we are going to look into the purpose, no? That is to improve students' learning. We're actually giving this while delivering the subject matter. Just like when you're actually giving, when you are giving your first aid course, your, you see, in between, we ask the students, in between, we ask the students to recite, to participate in the class. Class participation is a form of formative assessment also because these are given in between. You ask them what could be the sequence. You ask them how much this and how much that, right? So you ask them knowledge also specific, no, on the instrument that will be used in your BLS or in your first aid, no. So in the end, you give them tests. That is summative assessment. But in between, that is the formative assessment. So we can actually compare the two in between. So let's say for a BLS session, you may actually have 1 day, and there are a series of lessons that you're actually going to give. No? So in between, while you are actually giving them, you are assessing, you are teaching them. At the same time, you are assessing them. Anyway, you ask questions. There will be interaction. You show video, then you ask questions. No? So in between. Now, you will actually determine if the students are capable of learning or are not capable of learning, or they are very slow in learning process. So you may adjust. But at the end, ultimately, you're going to assess them if they will pass or fail. So by giving examination, 2 examinations, practical examination, and at the same time, your written examinations. The written examination given in the end is called summative, and the examinations given in between will be formative. No? Now, the evaluation may include little only, little content area, while here, complete. All, from the beginning up to the end. It will actually give you the achievement. Right. Now, the formative assessment is considered as evaluation process, as a process, because you keep on adjusting. Teacher adjusts, students adjust. You see? Let's say, for instance, the teacher is lecturing so fast, talking too fast. Your pacing is very fast. But when you give the quiz, students fail. When you give the summative, the formative assessment, students fail. So you assume that the students did not get you. So you have to adjust. You have to slow down. Maybe there will be a chance for you to repeat the entirety of the syllabus. That's actually the real meaning of this one. So when the students also will see the result, they will adjust. See, this syllabus is quite difficult. I need to study more. I need to listen more. I need to participate more. So it's a part of the process. It's a process. It's a process of adjustment. Because classroom teaching is classroom dynamic. It's dynamic. There will always be adjustment. Adjustment in between the 3 parts of the learning dynamics, the environment, the teacher, and the student. But on the summative assessment, it will be considered as a product, because in the end, when we are going to give it to you, how good the product is. Just like here in the United Arab Emirates, after graduation from bachelor's degree, we are giving examinations in order to get license. So that's actually what we can derive from the formative, a comparison between formative and summative assessment. All right. So here, let's say in the formative assessment, let us try to look into the low point value. Now, examples low point value and examples of high point value. Now, during a concept map to represent understanding of a topic, so we're going to look into this. So teachers need to do concept mapping also, because what needs to be taught. As a teacher, you cannot teach everything. So you just actually derive some sort of content inclusion in the module or syllabus that you're going to present. No? It will also be classroom polls, exit tickets, turning in research for early feedback, and sometimes 1-minute papers. No, just actually give the quiz and you answer them as that. No, for high points value that we give, midterm exams or end of unit chapter examination, the final project or paper, the examinations as such. All right. Now, scores will be used for accountability. That is for schools and students. So we'll see how much the students actually are performing in the university. That is where we set standard also for every university. That's the reason why there is the best university in the world, and there are universities that are actually closed down. Unlike in the United Arab Emirates, these are being monitored. No, I believe 3 weeks ago I was able to read the newspaper that 5 universities have been closed. I do not know. In Dubai, you have UMS, University of Modern Science. Etihad University actually is still under probation. I think there is also some sort of Jazeera University. I have never heard of that. But these are the universities that have been closed. Why? Because of the low achievements. No? So what is actually given here? They're going to look into the type of assessments that they are given and the result of these assessments that are given or that have been performed by the students in the university. Luckily, you are actually very transparent in this. We're looking into how much our students are achieving, the learning outcomes that we set. So there will always be a comparison between the set learning outcome and the achievement of the students, and eventually in the end, the Ministry of Education will look at it. And it depends on the performance of the students in the school. The CEA will either give you accreditation or not, or close you down. There are so many schools that have been closed down already as a result of that. So look at how examinations are important and at the same time learning outcome. Usually, as a university will not exist without laying down the learning outcomes and forming the examinations that we can actually have. We have to give this. Students need to be evaluated also, because how do we know if the students have learned? How do we know if we are delivering whatever is actually going to be delivered to the students? How do we know if the students are receiving their money's worth? Remember, you are paying your tuition fee. That means to say you are trying to subscribe for a product, and what's that product? Education. So in the end, we have to look at this also. It doesn't mean to say that when you pay, we give you free hand your diploma or certificate. It's not like that. We are going to make it sure that when we give the certificate or the diploma, in this case, your Bachelor's of Science degree in nursing, we have to make it sure that you're worth your diploma. You see? So you're worth your diploma. That means to say, we have to measure how much you have learned. Imagine, it will be shameful on us if in the end you do not know anything about what we are teaching. That's why we keep on evaluating from time to time. And the result of the evaluation are made public also. So that's the thing. The evaluations from the beginning and inception of our university could be accessed by the Ministry of Education. They have records. We have our records. They have to look at that. That's the reason why every university do have their examination or registrar's office where they keep the records also. This is the reason why it is more important that we have to know the standard that we have to follow, laying down the learning outcome and measuring the learning outcome through the examination that we give. That the examinations will be either in between or in the end, the so-called formative assessment, and at the same time, your end semester assessment, we call it summative assessment. All right, so that's the process. These are the two very important type of examination. There is another form of assessment also, which is called continuous assessment. I believe you are familiar with that. Continuous assessment. What is actually the meaning of this? So if you're going to look at your grades, there is what we call as continuous assessment. These are included. These are all the assessments that could have been marked and that could have been included in the mark that will be given all throughout the delivery of the course. It depends on what you're going to include. You have to clear this out with the students, no? And the university must actually lead on the foundations also. So this could be a combination of formative and summative assessments. In the end, you can come out with your assessment as such. It's a continuous assessment. We have to look at it. We have to combine all the assessments that we provided to the students. That's the reason why we call it a combination of summative and formative assessment. There will be quizzes. We call this as components of your grades. No? Continuous assessments are components of your mark. There is a quiz. There is a TBL. TBL is not a form of assessment. I would like to clarify you about it, no? But we are including that in difference to the IRAT, because the IRAT is an individual achievement of a student, so we have to look into that. There is also assignment. There is also midterm examination, mid-semester examination, or ICA, internal assessment, no? So we combine in the end the result, and you can come out with the actual result, a combination of summative and at the same time of formative assessments. That's the reason why we call it a continuous assessment. Now, it will usually involve repetitive summative assessments, or repeated summative assessments. And marks are recorded, no? there will be little or no feedback at all given other than the mark that you can actually get in the end. No? But for formative assessment, the mark must be given necessarily. Okay? So now assessment, this is very essential. Always take note of this. No? If you are teaching, you need to assess. If you are becoming a student, you need to overcome the assessment. No? So what is assessment? This is actually a dynamic. This is a process of gathering and discussing information from multiple and diverse sources in order to develop a deep understanding of what students know. So we have to look into how much the students would know during the delivery and in the end of the delivery of your syllabus or module or your courses or your degree. Okay? In order to develop a deep understanding of what the students know, now understand, and can do with the knowledge that they learn, the skills that they learn as a result of their educational experience. You come to the university to be educated. So we are going to assess that in between. We're going to look and measure how much knowledge you have gained and how much skill you have acquired through the educational experiences that you are experiencing and that we are giving, either in the classroom or either in the clinical area. That's it. No, that's what we actually do. Now, moving forwards, that assessment is a set of process designed to improve, demonstrate, and inquire about student learning. We are going to look into student learning all the time. That is the primary considerations that we always need to take note of as teachers. We have to look into how much achievement of the student is. There is no good teacher if the students are not learning anything from the class. Now, the basis of actually telling that the teacher is good when learning process takes place, when students acquire knowledge and use knowledge in their decision-making process. We have to assess that in the process of looking into their performance, either by giving them different types of assessments that we know. Practical assessment, OSCE assessment, OSPE assessment, your examinations, among others. All right. The assessments are given in order to find out what our students know and they can actually do. In the end, what can the University of Rock Medical Health Sciences University, the graduates of Rock Medical and Health Sciences University can do? What can the graduate of Rock College of Nursing can actually do? You see, after bachelor's degree, after receiving your scroll, after receiving your diploma from this university, from our college, you will go back to your respective workplace for in your cases, no? Because you have been working for so long for now. So how much you can actually share, how much you can actually utilize in order to improve your workplace. So we have to assess that also on our level, so that when you go back to your workplace, it will be reflective. I mean, what you learn in terms of skills and in terms of attitude and in terms of knowledge can be translated into the productivity in your workplace. How much productivity you can actually turn around by way of using all the knowledge and at the same time the skills that you acquire from this university. You know, we have to assess that. It's not only quizzes. There are so many forms of assessments that I'm going to discuss with you later. Yeah? So moving forward, no? So we're done with assessment. We are going to look into evaluation. So what's the difference between assessment and evaluation? Assessment is a form of measure. What about evaluation? Right? So let us try to look into this. This is a systematic process of determining the merit. We're going to look into the value. See, the word itself. Assess is to measure. Evaluation is to look for the value, the merit and worth of someone. How much this knowledge have been integrated to you. So that's the meaning of evaluation. It will be more holistic. So the evaluee, such as a teacher and a student, can actually be assessed in the end. We have to look on your overall performance. We are going to look on how much you have integrated with yourself. all the acquired knowledge and skills that we have given you all throughout the years. That's actually the meaning of this, no? Now, assessment is basically focused on the learning outcome, but evaluation is focused on the integration of all the learning outcomes in your behavior. After all, we can define learning as a process of changing your behavior through time. The change is permanent. So we are going to look into your value and the merit. So in the end, this is exactly what we would like to see from our students, right? So now how do we use and what do we use in the process of teaching? How do you use this? Now look at this. I'll give you some concrete example of evaluation. Now, every rotation, after every rotation of the class in the clinical area, your teachers will actually quantify. We can quantify our evaluation anyway, but most of the time we can actually have this quantification translated into qualifications or quality. Let's say excellent descriptions. No, let's say for instance, at the end of every rotation, you are rotated at the psychiatric ward. I usually do this. No, other than I give quizzes that will be in the form of assessment. In the end, I have to look into your performance under our specific quality that we are looking for. We have to look into that. We can quantify that by giving you mark, or we can qualify that by writing something about your performance. So in the end, we are going to look at it. No, I believe you have encountered this because you have been going to the hospital from time to time, and your teacher are actually evaluating you. Now the managers are evaluating you also. You are workers. And at the same time, for you as managers, when you evaluate, you quantify the value of each individual that you are trying to assess. Is it? For promotion also, you are evaluating people. So you are going to look into the work, the contribution, the merit of people who are working under you. So this is actually what we mean by this evaluation, right? The quantified merit and value or worth of someone in the institution that they are working with or they are studying with. No? All right, so let us try to focus on, do you have any questions so far, class? You understand, you follow?
Yes, doctor, no question.
Very good, no? So assessment and evaluation of teaching. So we are going to look into the assessment and evaluation of teaching. By the way, when you are going to have your practicum already, like for instance, I'm thinking on what to do right now, because normally students are preparing materials to be taught. So I'm still thinking what we are going to do because the time is actually different, no? Now, as you're going to present your performance, I'm going to evaluate you, the holistic performance in the process of teaching. So I can quantify you, so I can actually make it sure that sometimes when I'm going to assess you, there will be qualities that I'm looking for, and I'm going to score that quality using standards, maybe using Likert scale, 1 to 5, 1 to 6, it depends, or 1 to 4. Then I'm going to count how much you have scored. Now, in that case, you can actually find your worth. So I can integrate evaluation also in my process of teaching, but usually evaluation is a part. It could be a formative or it could be summative evaluation, because there must always be a way to make it sure that students can actually reflect on the result of what they were given, on what they are evaluated for. So let's see. Now we are going to apply this in our teaching. So assessment of teaching means we're going to look into the measure of its effectiveness. When we teach, when we are going to evaluate you in the process of teaching, we are going to look into the effectiveness of the materials that we deliver, effectiveness of the process that you use in order to deliver the materials that you have. While evaluation will involve the measurement as part of adjustment, determining the value, like for instance, evaluation of teaching means passing judgment on it as part of a process such as quality assurance. No? The evaluation involves a judgment of quality. Always take note of this. Evaluation involves a judgment of quality because quality will reflect the value, will reflect the merit, will reflect the worth. That's why, as I said, for the managers, like some of you do, when you're going to evaluate people, you're always going to think about worth. In evaluating, you must always be as objective as possible because you are trying to find the value of each and everyone in the workplace. For teachers also, we have to look at that, no? If we treat our people as garbage, then we are going to give them as failing, no? We evaluate them as a failure because they have not contributed anything. So their value could be negative, their value could be low or very, very low in an organization. That's the reason why at the end, or sometimes we have to decide that we are going to ask them to move away. Okay, to be terminated in a way, not to renew your contract in a way. So something like that. So we're going to look into the quality. No? Now, these are some of the things that we need to consider in assessing the learning outcome because assessment and evaluation must always be assessed in the end. Now, the learning outcomes, these are the statement of what a student will know. As I repeat, now we have to review, understand, and we're able to, at the end of the learning experience. So we're going to look into, usually, every delivery of the learning outcome. We can actually do that. We can give formative evaluation in the end or in between, as I mentioned to you, or upon every delivery of the learning outcome, because come to think of it, when you're actually going to think, that the best thing that you will think about will be the learning outcome that you have stated. What are the learning outcomes that I'm going to achieve today? And based from the learning outcome, you can lay down what needs to be learned by the student. Now, having described your courses in terms of learning outcomes, you now want to find out whether students have achieved them. Now, remember this is actually the measurement for this will be during the delivery. It's formative, or you can actually do that in the end, which call it summative. Now, specify the types of student performance that will provide evidence of learning. So we need to look into this. We don't just actually give examination for the sake of giving it. We need to evaluate how much the students are actually learning. That's why every now and then we give you quiz. Right now, I think next week you will be given quiz. I believe everybody got the quiz already, quiz result, and I'm very happy about the result. I'm not also happy about some other result, no? So when I look at the result on your quiz and your TBL, I was always looking into this. Now I was asking myself, did I teach the student? Did I actually deliver my learning outcome properly? So when I look at the score, so many got 10, and so many got 9 or 8 or 7 average. That means to say, learning actually takes place in the class. I think only 1 or 2 did not make it. So that's the thing. So I presume that majority of the students will actually, or majority of the students learn something in my class. Now, what to do with the result that is actually below the streamline, below the passing mark? What shall I do with that? I will not give repeat tests, but I will try to help them eventually. How do we help them? Once in a while, that's the reason why there are offices here. We have offices, so we can call them in our offices and try to reteach them. We may not reteach the whole class, but we may actually conduct learning session with them, 1 or 2 students. And we have to focus on the area where they did not actually perform well. So this is the thing. So in the end, they will learn something about what we are actually teaching. This is how we utilize the result of assessment in the classroom. So we can assess, no, the learning outcome using that, and we can also say that the learning outcome could have been achieved depending on the result that is registered by the students while doing the formative or summative assessment. All right. These are some of the assessment choices. What are the assessments that will actually be given? This is actually very crucial. What can you give and how can you assess the students? See, most of the time, the most famous assessment that we are giving are all MCQs. Okay, there are other forms of assessments that you will learn eventually. Okay, now how best to measure the wide range of the learning outcomes that we have? What kind of assessments that we can actually give to the students? Or what type of test that will be included in order to measure the learning outcomes that we have included in our syllabus or in our module? Assessments can be written, like in the quiz, can be oral, like in recitation, can be practical, like in the case of OSCE, or can be assignments, can be research work, can be project, or other techniques or other form of assessment. See, your assignment is a form of assessment because you can actually utilize what you learned so far in doing it. No? There must always be a balance between formative and summative assessment. There must be a balance in between the two. So you have to look into that. Now, sir, in a formative assessment, you have already measured this subject. So you may not include that. You must not include that with the summative assessment. Is that right? What do you think? Usually this is happening, right? You may question teachers. Sir, ma'am, since you covered this in your CA1, it must not be covered in the semester examination. Is that correct, class? What do you think?
I did not get.
Let's say, for instance, you are actually getting your CA, continuous as your ICA, right? So there will be ICA 1. And let's say you have 10 topics. And you cover topics 1, 2, and 3 in your ICA. Are you going to, is that correct, if we're going to cover that also in our comprehensive examination? I will replace that. I will replace that with my subject. Now we have tackled already philosophy of education, your learning style and teaching style, and purportedly this will be included in your ICA, right? Shall I also include this in your summative examination, or when I'm going to give you your comprehensive examination that will be given in the end? You call that as final exams.
Maybe
what do you think? Huh?
Maybe you'll be the
Oh, yeah. You see.
Dr. Arnel, I don't think, because most of you, if you said, if you have covered some subjects in the CA1, and we are already studying something new in for the second semester, it will be a total new subject. So better not to repeat what we have taken a long time ago. So whatever we have studied in the second semester, I think it's better to include that one into CA2 because it's something recent. We know about it. Although that one already khalas, we have finished it. We know about it, everything. But better to put something new
Yeah,
for the
you're
CA2.
correct. Yeah, you're correct when you mentioned about CA2. Yes, but what about the comprehensive examination, or we call it the final examination? Shall we include the coverage in CA1? Usually, these are the point of contention that we are actually having here in the university, isn't it? That means the students are still bargaining. Now, shall we include the philosophy of education, the learning style, and the teaching style in the final examination?
I think it will be better. We will have high marks if like that because we know about it. The more you brought, then it's okay. It will be very easy for us.
Yeah. Now, ideally, we need to include everything in the summative assessment. We call it final examination. But you are correct in telling that since we covered this in the formative assessment already in the CE1, some topics, therefore, whatever is going to be covered in formative assessments during your delivery of second semester, it must always be covered that way. What we just covered must always be covered that way. Now, the difference is that I'm just asking you the summative assessment, the final examination. No amount of compromise must always actually be accepted if we will not include your topic number 1 and topic number 2. Course number 1 or course number 2. We have to include everything at equal percentage, no? But of course, we are always considering the request of our students once in a while, no? So that's why we are excluding. Now, we can actually justify that in your summative assessment, what we are measuring only will be the summative, or will be some representative learning outcomes, because as I mentioned earlier, it will be very impossible to measure all the learning outcomes that we have included. So we may include philosophy of education, but we will not include all the learning outcomes that have been there in the end semester examination. We may actually pick 1 or 2 learning outcomes so that we can actually assign 1 or 2 items for the examination. That's actually what we do, isn't it? So whenever we are actually planning for the learning out for the examinations in the end, we're always looking into that. So that must be included that way. No? So there must be a balance between formative and summative, and also assessment must be continuous. Or is it terminal or once only? Sometimes this is actually very dangerous, like in the British system of education, you know, the assessment is actually given once. If you are going to fail, it will be very difficult already for you to succeed, no? I have seen so many people who did not make it in taking their E-level and taking their IGCSE. So this will be a problem. Now for the board examination also, the moment that they were not able to make it, they were not able to pass, then that's it. They cannot practice the profession. There are so many nursing graduates who could not actually do that. They spend 4 years in their studying of the course, and eventually they cannot practice. This is actually an outcome of considering the summative assessment as a terminal assessment that will be given once, and it will be very difficult. No, it will not do justice to other people also. It will not give justice to learners. No. Now, these are some of the techniques of assessment, no? So that you will understand written. In written, we have the following types. Tests. Tests, that is, that will be given short, no? Usually around 10 items, just like what are actually given in your quizzes, no? Tests. Short, coverage. Maybe 1 item, 2 item, it depends. It will actually be given as a sort of MCQ or essay. You have to write short answered question or simple easy question, no? So written. Examinations. So the difference between test and examinations is dependent on the length. Normally the test is actually short, that will be considered as a formative. Test is always formative in nature, that will be given in between. Examination is usually summative in nature, it will be given in the end. And the examinations would always be long, no? Always take note of that. You get the point, class? So you know the difference between test and examinations, no? Test will
Yes,
always
sir.
be short, and it will be given as a formative assessment, no? In between the delivery of the learning outcomes, while examination is actually usually long. It can be a form of formative, and at the same time, it can be a form of summative, but usually we use examination as a summative examinations, no? Then assignments also, like your assignment 1. Assignments can be given as formative or summative. In this case, the use of our assignments will be summative because it's given once. But usually in other institutions, in other universities, the usual habits that assignments are given every week. You have your children also. Now, we believe you have your children who are studying. Assignments are given every day. So, and there are even rules, no, that there will be no assignment on Thursdays because students must actually be playing also during the weekend. So, on the other hand, assignments are actually given to the students. Why? Because assignments can always help the students to learn more. And assignments can also help the teachers to assess the capacity and at the same time how much the students could have learned in the delivery of the learning outcome. So it depends on how you're going to use that. No, assignments can be written. So we are actually giving you written assignments in the end. These are all sorts of assessment that can be quantified. No, now practical, on the other hand, are forms of assessments also, like in the case of skills testing. What we're doing right now is that we're actually doing this. No, either it will be formative and it will be summative. Now, in formative assessment, we actually ask the students to do return demonstration. You see? It's informal return demonstration. So the clinical instructors or the professors will actually demonstrate the procedure. After the demonstration of the procedure, you have to repeat that. Now, in BLS, it's actually being done. The BLS instructor usually demonstrate the process, the procedure. Then students or attendees will demonstrate it outright, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, like for instance, the use of the lead and so on and so forth. That's a formative assessment. So you see the difference now. So in between, while you are actually trying to complete, so that's formative assessment. No, then in the end, you give examinations. So skills testing. So you're going to demonstrate all in its entirety what you learned so far. Another form of practical will be workshop practice. So the students will be given a task to do, and they have to do it in a matter of time. That's practical assessment. Okay. Then oral assessment. I'll give you recitation. Now, usually we have dreaded professors when I was studying to be a priest. You know, in our philosophy, it's very difficult. We have to be very ready because there are also what we call as graded recitation, and other people, sometimes they'll say non-graded recitation. You know, graded recitation, that means to say you have to be ready, you have to be prepared. No, if you will not answer, the whole class will actually look down on you. So that's the thing. A graded recitation is just like that. So the questions will be at random in a way. No, so students are called to stand up. Students are asked to answer. So that will be in sort of summative examination. It could be given in the end. Or formative assessment, it can be given in between. So that's the reason why the teachers keep on calling your name, right? Mariam, something like that. Can you answer this? Fatma, can you answer this? Something like that. No, students are being asked by the teachers to answer very specific questions that they have been asking in the classroom. It can be used as a formative assessment, right? Now, another one, of course, oral will be interview, or in your Viva, when you have your thesis, no? You can actually do that, right? So you will deliver your materials to a group of examiners. They will examine you. It depends on the thesis that you have, and then you will defend. That's the reason why we call it oral defense or Viva voce. No, oral defense. That's a form of oral examinations. That's a form of oral assessment. We have to mark you according to the mark sheet. Now, it can be used again as a formative and as summative, and there are other various formats, no, that we can actually have. Now, oral listening tests. Sometimes it's given most of the time as summative tests. I believe everybody here underwent IELTS. Are you familiar with IELTS?
Yes.
Isn't it that there is listening tests, right?
Well, I don't like it.
So that's a technique, no? It's very difficult. So in the listening test, you are going to listen on what's actually being read, right?
Yes, well, I will get headache really.
Then eventually questions must be answered based on the test. That's oral test. That's actually listening test. So that's a form of summative test also, IELTS. So there are so many forms in IELTS, no? Reading, no? So written, all what we have are all written, but in listening test, it can be written, and at the same time, you actually hear that, then you try to write about it. No. Another assessment technique will be projects. So usually that's the reason why parents, if your parents don't do so much to help your children, this is usually the problem that we have. They are actually the school gives project to the student, especially the elementary, and most of the time parents are actually doing the project. It will defeat the purpose. Do not do that. Do not do the project yourselves. Let the students do that. No? Are you doing the projects and other assignments of your children? Honestly, class, do you do that?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we are helping them sometimes.
Yeah, helping is okay. Helping the students is okay. But doing the assignment
Because
and
they
other
cannot
projects.
actually give the whole thing, Dr. Arnel.
Yeah, I know that. I know. This is usually my advice. No? So including my wife is taking care of my son's education. So she's in charge. No, I'm always trying to instruct her. Do not do entirely the project. You let your son do it, no matter what. You guide, but do not just do the pasting, do not do the drawing, do not do the writing. Let him do it. You just help him in the preparation. You know why?
Actually,
Yeah.
we are letting them to like interfere, sir. They are not only like depending totally on us. I can like tell her what is the main subject.
Mhm.
They will be telling me, we have to talk or to make a picture about so and so. Okay, what do you have in mind? Like we have to include them with us so that she will have an idea what is her topic mainly. So with that one, yes, okay, I'm helping her like with the subject and what you have to put and so on. And also like they have to participate in the input itself. It's not will be all on me.
Yes, very good. That's a very good parenting, and that's actually a very good thing. So that's one of the reason why we are giving project to the students, because we would like their creativity. We would like to assess how much they're actually learning, how much they have acquired. Isn't it? Like, for instance, very simple. If you are learning elementary science, life cycle of a frog, life cycle of a worm, something like that. So they are asked to do something. So we can actually support them. What do you need? Then eventually you have to brainstorm with your child. What is your idea? Then you are actually going to help them in any way. That's actually our job as parents, and at the same time, that's helping our children to learn and to be responsible. So, but of course, it's a no-no if you're going to do it yourselves. I'm telling my wife not to do that. Let your son do it, but help him. Provide the means, then ideas, then most probably you may actually start together, then let the child continue. A sense of achievement also for children will actually be there, isn't it? So,
Dr. Arnel, like let's say if there is some kind of children who are not even interested at all to think of what they should do, like how you can deal with such mentality. A child will be very easily irritated actually if you keep on stressing on them that you should do, you should think, you should tell me like which colors you want to add into this drawings or so. But if he doesn't seem to respond to my way of dealing with him, how can I show the interest in him so that he will cooperate with me?
yeah, this is actually a challenge. So now we were looking into psychology of learning. Right now, as much as possible, do not try to initiate the job. Let them do it. The reason why, assess them, help them in a way, but do not force. You see, reminding them you have an assignment, you have an assignment, you have assignment to do every day is actually a good thing. Or helping them, teaching them, helping them at home. That's the reason why assignments must be given at home. So helping them, what color? So you have to teach that, because the real purpose, why is it that teachers are actually giving this to our children, is that they are making it sure that students are going to learn. It's a process, no? Learning is a dynamic process. If we're going to teach our children, little children, so there must always be a cooperation of parents. We expect that, no? That's the reason why parents must always help, but must not do the assignment. So as much as possible, they will be asked. Now, there are difficult children, so we are going to be very patient teaching them, choosing colors. So let them realize it. No, let them know what colors they want, and we do not teach them what colors they need to pick. So let them be. So if the assignment or project will require something like color yellow and they place the orange, let them be. So let them do that. No, after all, projects are just actually a reflection of what the students could have learned. Maybe the students could have an idea about it. You see? Maybe orange could be something else. Maybe the students actually can justify that when she would or he would present that to the class. It depends, no? So we'll never know. But we try to be very patient in order to help our children. Now, anyway, we'll try to continue this next meeting. And it's already 9:30, and I do not need to take much of your time. Please write present in the message board. And if you have some questions later on, you can actually call me, or we can continue discussing about this as we go next week. No, there are so many things to be discussed yet because this is very important. I would like you to understand this, okay? Are there any questions? If there are no questions, then please sign present and then have a good day. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.